And one thing we really need to understand is they are not the souls of the dead. They're not actually human beings or connected to human beings at all. So it's not your dead great-grandfather. It's not like somebody who was killed in the house, in 1840.
And all that house is haunted. The soul of the one. Yeah.
What they are is they are a creature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. Like, you have to make people do things that no human being, we're not talking about kafir and believer. You have to remove humanity from that person, because humanity includes a fitrah of something towards Allah. Hatta if he's kafir, he's got in his heart some sort of like, there's a God, this is
some
wrong.
level of respect or something. Yeah.
We teach these kids, subhanAllah, if we just taught them, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, that monster under the bed is gone.
In a world where witchcraft, wizardry, and things that go bump in the night have become popular, we have become acceptable to feel things from a world that is unseen. The question is, what does Islam say about that world and about the creatures that exist in that world? And today we're joining me with Ustadh Tim Humble, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, to discuss this very topic, inshallah ta'ala. So things that go bump in the night, witchcraft, wizardry, where do we start, inshallah?
Yeah, the first thing I think we should start with is exactly what you mentioned in your introduction about the world of the unseen, and the fact that the unseen is such an important part of belief in Islam. So if we look right at the beginning of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, what does Allah describe the successful believers as having the quality? الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. They believe in that which is not seen. And of course, that which is not seen is Allah. Allah is not seen in this world. Allah will not be seen until you die. The angels and other elements, paradise, hellfire. But to talk about the world of the jinn, the world of the devils, the shayateen, that is also a part of the unseen world. And I guess the difference is, there are a couple of differences, but one of the differences is that it's partially unseen. It's unseen up to an extent. And I guess the default nature is that it's an unseen world. Allah said, إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُمْ. He, meaning Iblis, Satan, the devil, sees you, he and his tribe, meaning he and the jinn, from where you do not see him. And even though there are ways that those worlds can collide, the default position is that it's from the world of the unseen. And that means that it's a part of your faith where you take that knowledge from the Quran and from the Sunnah and from what the early generation of Muslims agreed upon. And we don't take it from movies, books, stories, as much as that might interest the person from a point of interest, but it's not where we take our belief from.
It's very interesting because, as you mentioned, we shouldn't take it from the movies and the books and so on and so forth. And what we see is like trending these days is that people watch horror movies, right? And they like them, they get the thrill, they get the buzz and so on and so forth. But when it comes to the religious belief, and we start talking about the world of the jinn and what the jinn do and how they interact with humans, they say, oh no, don't talk about that, man. There's like a kind of like resilience to enter into that belief, which is a core belief that we have in Islam. And what do you think why that is, maybe?
Yeah, so the first thing is, when it comes to horror movies, we need to understand something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَهُ فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. This is only the shaitan who makes you scared of his allies. And a goal of the shaitan is to make you scared in general, make you scared of the shaitan, scared of the things that go bump in the night, scared of the dark. That is a goal of the shaitan. Don't be scared of them, but be scared of Allah if you're really believers. So there's two elements to that. The first one is, stay away from these things which are forbidden in any case, but which are actually facilitating for the shaitan. They're making you vulnerable to the shaitan, not because you're getting possessed or something like that, but because you become so terrified, you start to give the shaitan what he doesn't deserve. And how many times we're talking about the jinn, we're talking about jinn stories, and people want you to give something that the shaitan doesn't deserve. They want you to say that this shaitan, did this and that and the other, in such a way that you give them some degree of veneration and honor and respect, which they don't deserve. Inna kayda ash-shaytani kana da'ifa The plot of the shaitan, kana, is always. That's what kana here you feed al-istimrar. It's always and consistently and forever weak. So don't give them that big, sort of veneration that they don't deserve.
Pedestal and that sort of stuff.
That's very important. So that's one thing. Don't let the shaitan make you scared. And then direct your fear when you do feel naturally scared. Not through watching horror movies, but you naturally. I mean, I've been doing ruqyah and jinn related, sort of dealing with these kind of issues for a long time. Probably, I don't know if I could put a number on it, but almost 20 years. Probably 18 years. And people ask you, do you get scared? I mean, yeah, sure, you get scared. Like I would say you don't get scared as a feeling of consistently scared, but you jump, you get startled. I think the word startled is better than scared. But you're sitting with someone just completely normally, and then they just go, you jump, you get startled by it, and that is all about. At that time, it's about directing your fear towards Allah and not towards the jinn and the shaitan. And I really, when I see kids, it pains me to see kids. I mean, horror movies for sure, but it pains me to see people scared of the dark, scared of the shaitan, scared of the monsters under the bed. We get rid of monsters under the bed. That's adi. And like we teach these kids, subhanallah, if we just taught them, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, that monster under the bed is gone.
Finished.
So we want people to feel like that they're insignificant, to feel that they're your enemy. Inna shaytana lakum aduun fattakhidhuhu aduwa. He's your enemy. Like he's going to make trouble for you.
So make sure you take him as an enemy.
And take him as an enemy. So don't take him as a friend. Don't belittle him in the sense of not taking his enmity seriously. But don't see him to be this big, powerful monster that controls your life. He isn't. His job is what? وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ وما كان لي عليكم من سلطان إلا أن دعوتكم فاستجبتم لي. I didn't have any power over you, but I invite you and you keep answering my invitation.
Exactly.
That's the problem. The shaitan doesn't have the power over you like the power to control you in that way. Aside from the issues of jinn possession, which we'll talk about inshallah ta'ala. But what the shaitan really does is invite you to do things that are bad for you. And so when you see him for what he is, you become very scared of the problems that can cause. Scared of your sins, scared of following the shaitan. But you don't become scared of the monsters under the bed.
That's very, very important. Very well put. And I think that's a beautiful and most appropriate time to discuss what this creation is. Okay, a jinn. What is a jinn? What does the word jinn mean? What is shaitan? Because we have some misconceptions where people believe that Satan, shaitan, is a fallen angel because he was in the company of the angels. So what is the backstory here and what is this creation we're talking about?
Okay, so maybe we can ask a question to the people watching this video from those who are watching who are familiar, a little bit familiar with Islam, with Arabic and things like that. If I give you, let's say, 3 or 4 words that all have Jim and Noon in them. We talk about Jannah.
Okay.
Which is paradise. We talk about Al-Janeen, the fetus, the baby in the womb. Okay, we talk about Jinn, for example. And let's say we talk about Al-Junoon, insanity.
Okay. Yes.
What do those 4 things have in common? So we're asking the people at home if you can figure this one out. What do these 4 things, a fetus in the womb, Jannah, insanity, and the jinn, have all in common? So you can't say it's something to do with evil because Jannah is not.
Exactly.
All of them are concealed.
Okay.
So the Jim and the Noon in Arabic, Jim, Noon, and Noon together bring a meaning of being hidden, concealed, from the eyes. So the Jannah is a lush garden that you can't see inside of it because of the border, like the hedge, the trees, and you can't see inside. That's the original word, apart from the word for paradise. The original word is a lush garden where the vegetation is so thick you can't see inside of it.
Okay.
And the fetus is obviously something that is hidden in the womb. And you have the issue of al-junoon, which is insanity, which is where your intellect and your intelligence and your mind has been like covered up and hidden. So your true self isn't coming out.
Your true nature, your true characteristics.
Instead, it's this kind of insanity is coming out. And the jinn are a hidden creature. Now we need to be really clear here what the jinn aren't. Before we even say what they are, sometimes وَبِضِدِّهِ يعني تتبين الأشياء. And sometimes when you get the opposite of things, you get to know what they really are. And one thing we really need to understand is they are not the souls of the dead. They're not actually human beings or connected to human beings at all. So it's not your dead great-grandfather. It's not like somebody who was killed in the house, in 1840.
And all that house is haunted. You have the soul of the one.
What they are is they are a creature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. So they're from the makhluqat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah created them. And Allah Azza wa Jal created every creature with different characteristics. So if you look at a lion, it has its characteristics. You look at a beetle, it has its characteristics. And the jinn as a creation have certain characteristics. Now, what really concerns us out of those characteristics, because instead of mentioning all of them, just to focus on what's really important, is number one is that they have intelligence and they have limited free will as we do. So there's a discussion, they are less than human beings in virtue, that is for sure, because Allah said وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We certainly have preferred and honored the children of Adam, but they have a degree of intelligence and they have limited free will. I like to use that word limited so that people understand that neither you nor me have complete free will. I can't just decide to be from the people of Jannah. And I can't just automatically put my name on the list of Al-Firdaus Al-A'la, as much as we would want to do that. It depends on the will of Allah. But I have the ability to make choices that are my choices if Allah helps me for those choices to come into to practice and to exist. So the jinn are the same. However, they are a creation that we can't normally see. So a creation that has limited free will and intelligence, but we can't normally see them. So that means that in that way, not normally being able to see them, that comes kind of similar to the angels in that way, in the sense of they're a creation that live in their own world and that we can't normally see. But different from the angels do not have free will. And that brings us to the point that there is no way for the jinn to be fallen angels. Whether Iblis, Satan, or anyone else, because there are no fallen angels. لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. They do not disobey Allah in what He commanded them to do, and they do what they're told. So the angels, they don't disobey and they don't have a choice. They only have the ability to do what they're told. As for the jinn, like us, they make choices. And because they make choices, that follows from that there are believing jinn and that there are disbelieving jinn. And as Allah said about the jinn, as Allah tells us the jinn said about themselves, kunna tara'iqa qidada. We are of many different tara'iq, many different beliefs, many different groups, many different ways, many different religions, because they have that choice as we do. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Whoever wants to believe, let them believe. And whoever wants to disbelieve, that's their choice to disbelieve. So there are Muslim jinn, وَأَنَّا مِنَّا الْمُسْلِمُونَ وَمِنَّا الْقَاسِطُونَ فَمَنْ أَسْلَمَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ تَحَرَّوْا رَشَدًا. From among us, there are the believers, and among us are the disbelievers and the rebellious. And as for those who have accepted Islam, those are the ones who've chosen a wise and righteous way. وَأَمَّا الْقَاسِطُونَ فَكَانُوا لِجَهَنَّمَ حَطَبًا. As for those rebellious disbelievers, they're going to be firewood for Jahannam. As وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. So as will human beings. So that means they have the promise of Jannah if they obey Allah, and they also have the promise of the fire if they disobey Allah Azza wa Jal. There's an interesting point which the scholars talk about. Are the jinn the offspring of Iblis? The way that human beings are the offspring of Adam. And that seems to be possibly, it has some strength to it, has some possibility to it. It's difficult to say for sure, But the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, أَفَتَتَّخِذُونَهُ وَذُرِّيَّتَهُ أَوْلِيَاءَ مِن دُونِي وَهُمْ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ. It seems to indicate إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ. It seems to indicate that he is the father of the jinn in the way that Adam is the father of al-bashar, the father of human beings. And Allah knows best. It's not a matter that's agreed upon, but it's a matter there seems to be some kind of small indication to it, possibly in the Quran. But that's a discussion the scholars have. So now we understood that there are going to be believers and disbelievers. Those disbelieving jinn, of course, will be divided into two types. And here is where I want to get the word shaytan in there.
Okay.
You know, Satan.
Yeah.
Or devils. The shayateen, first of all, there's an overlap, but that it's not equal. So a jinn doesn't equal a shaitan.
Okay.
It could be used like that. Be careful, because in some of the texts, the word shaitan could be used generically like that. Like or generic, because the context is
from
the evil
humans
jinn
and the jinn, right?
But there's an overlap, but it's not the case that the two are the same. So not every jinn is a shaitan, and not every shaitan is a jinn.
Yeah.
So not every jinn is a shaitan. That's because they're a believing jinn. And also the shaitan, the word shaitan is all about transgressing the bounds and transgressing the limits and going to the peak and pinnacle of disbelief. It's not about just a person who's, for example, not a believer who's looking into, let's say, Islam and لا يقال له شيطان. يعني the word shaitan is used for the most stubborn and obstinate and rebellious disbelievers. It's not used for someone who's just, say, for example,
on the fringes,
thinking about not sure what they want to be, or keeping out of everyone's way. So it's not the case that every jinn is a shaitan, nor is it the case that every shaitan is a jinn. And from that is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal that we all know, min al-jinnati wan nas, that the jinn and the men that whisper into the chests of the people. And from it, the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. Al-ayah. Allah said, like this we have made for every prophet an enemy, from the shayateen of the men and the shayateen of the jinn. So the shayateen of the men are those who have gone beyond all limits in evil, in misguiding people, in cooperating with the jinn. Because here Allah says, يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. They inspire each other. So the jinn who are the shayateen of the jinn inspire the shayateen of mankind. And the shayateen of mankind also encourage the shayateen of the jinn. And this is where the issue of magic can come in, but not restricted to that. Not only the issue of a magician who controls the jinn through magic, but even the shayateen, the people who want people to go away from Islam and misguide them from it. They want help from the shayateen from the jinn. And the shayateen from the jinn give them some inspiration. And there are numerous ayat like that. The statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ لَيُوحُونَ إِلَىٰ أَوْلِيَائِهِمْ لِيُجَادِلُوكُمْ وَإِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ إِنَّكُمْ لَمُشْرِكُونَ. The shayateen, and you hear the jinn, they inspire their allies from the men in order for them to argue with you. They teach them how to argue, and how to make jidal with you, how to fight you and how to argue with you. And if you obey them, you would be mushrikun. And as a small fa'idah here, people ask, what's the type of shirk mentioned here? If you obey them, you'll be mushrikun. It's shirk fi ta'ah. Shirk in making halal what Allah made haram, and haram what Allah made halal, and so on. So that's the shirk that's mentioned there. So they help each other, they inspire each other. So now we've got an enemy, and that enemy includes people who are shayateen and jinn who are shayateen, but we want to focus here on the discussion on the jinn. And they are an unseen enemy. We can't normally see them. Might be some istithna'at, some rare exceptions to that, but typically we wouldn't be able to see them. And now we know that they are committed to misguiding us. And they want to do that through typically whispering. الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ. They want to whisper into your heart, not into your ear. So even though you can hear whispering, certain sort of illnesses and things like that. But typically you don't hear the shaitan whisper into your ear. It comes straight into the heart. الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس, and calling you to do things that they know appeals to your nafs and your shahwa, which is not good for you, and which takes you away. Ultimately, what is the goal? The goal is to call you to be min ashab al-sa'ir, from the people of the fire. That's what they want from you. Because Iblis is extremely jealous. That's his real, and he's extremely arrogant and extremely jealous. But in terms of Bani Adam, his relationship with Bani Adam is one of hasad. That if you honored Adam and you made Adam that position that you didn't give me, I'm going to ruin them all. Going to ruin every single one. And it's jealousy. And that's why hasad is really it's a khuluqun shaytani.
Subhanallah.
It's a devilish behavior. It's a devilish kind of attribute to have, especially when it comes in its extreme forms. And that's why the evil eye, which we tie in, is a very extreme form. And the evil eye really often, some of the ulama say this is an issue about certain cases, but in the majority, it comes min nafsin sharia, an evil person, generally. Not every time, but usually it comes from the evil in a person's soul. Because this is all about the shaitan and Iblis, jealous and jealousy and wanting people to lose things and all of that. So this is the shaitan is trying to do this to us. He's going to use multiple things. And I don't want people to think, there are two mistakes people make on both sides. Ifratun wa tafrit. Extremism on both sides. One is that people believe that everything the shaitan does is from magic and jinn possession, and they start to see that everywhere. But not just see it everywhere, they start to actually ignore the fact that the main job of the shaitan is al-waswasa and a da'wah. Da'wah ila nar and waswasa. Calling people to the hellfire and whispering. That's the main job of the shaitan. That is what he does 95% of the time. And al-mas was sihr and all of those things, jinn possession and sihr and all that is a smaller percentage than that. The other side is denying that those things take place. It's mental illness. And the person is stuck on the ceiling, 5 foot off the air. Mental illness. And it's like the brain is.
Because it can do some
there's a sahir, la'anahullah. This sahir is from the worst of the Sahara and he's unique. And what's unique about him is that what he does is convince people that sihr doesn't exist.
Wow.
So his job is to convince people that all the things you see that are magic are not actually real. So obviously the way they do that is, number one, by showing sleight of hand, which is something which leads to magic, but it's not part of magic itself, tricks and things like that. But actually they start telling you, your eyes, the power of the brain. I just suggested to you that you would see someone flying, and then your brain tricked you into seeing this guy flying in the air. This guy suspended off the floor 3 foot with his back bent upwards, screaming, flipping around. The sofa's flying across the room. The windows open, the lights are switching on and off, but that's just the power of your mind. That is fundamentally wrong. And it could even reach a level of a person disbelieving in Allah. SubhanAllah. If a person is going to come to the ayat of Allah regarding the jinn and get to the point where they reject them wholesale, Sahih, the issue of do the jinn enter the body is not an issue of kufr and iman, because it's ghamid. It's not entirely clear to everybody who looks into it. It is clear, but if somebody didn't know, we would say they would be confused and perhaps forgiven for their confusion. But if someone outright rejects the existence of sihr, the existence of jinn, the existence of the evil eye, that is a very serious position to be in terms of a lack of faith. So the issue is very, very serious. So we see both sides. Don't put everything on the side of magic. And here, I don't know, I personally think this is maybe it's a bit controversial for me, but I am not a big conspiracy theorist when it comes to all of the conspiracies of the world revolving around sihr, around magic and jinn. I actually think it's more likely that the way that conspiracies work around the world is actually from al-waswasa, more likely, and wahyu shaytan, the inspiration of the shaytan, more than it is that everyone's doing sihr. So I'm not convinced personally that all of these celebrities are like slaughtering like babies on altars and like pouring the blood around the walls. And I've no doubt
that stuff happens.
That stuff happens. But I'm not convinced that
every single person,
everybody needs to do that.
Yeah.
Because the shaitan doesn't need to do that.
Yeah.
That is one part of what the shaitan will have you do, and there are other parts. And it's enough that you're a caller to evil. The shaitan is plenty happy if that's your job. If you are an influencer who is influencing people to do evil, especially influencing people to do shirk and to leave Islam, or influencing people to do like fahsha, immorality, because immorality takes away from iman, it deadens iman. إنما يأمركم بالسوء والفحشاء وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون. He only invites you to do evil and immorality and say about Allah what you don't know, because those things are what's going to lead you to leave Islam. So the shaitan doesn't need that. If you're an influencer or a celebrity or a movie star or whatever, a musician or whatever it is, and you're calling people away from Islam and deadening people's hearts and calling them into kufr, that by itself could be enough for the shaitan to serve you. Not in the way he serves a magician, but that could be enough that the shaitan makes you famous and popular and whatever. And don't get me wrong, I also believe the other side, that there are people, without a shadow of a doubt, simahum fi wujuhihim, you see on their face. You can see on their face that shaitan. And if we talk about, I think it's a good topic, we talk a little bit about some of the things, like the whole
the stories and the
Hollywood and celebrities and all of that. Wallahi, you can see very clearly. Me personally, I'm very careful. I don't watch these things, but what I will sometimes do is read, like, say, Wikipedia. If someone's talking about the latest movie, what I will sometimes do is I might read the synopsis on Wikipedia. Just the kids are falling into it. People say, "Oh, watch this. It's got this in it. It's got that in it. What's the ruling on it?" And I'm thinking, I'm not going to go watch it. So what I might do is just take the synopsis. Say, okay, what's it all about? It's about this. There's certain people, celebrities, you read about them in the news, that it is no doubt in my mind that these people actively worship the shaitan and court the power that comes from complete and total submission to the shaitan and the worship of the shaitan, devil worship. And that's a level above, because now we're talking about, there's a level which is the shaitan whispering to you, and you're kind of doing evil, and he's encouraging you to do evil, and he's helping to promote you because you do evil. And then there's a person who says, I want a personal relationship. I want a personal relationship with the devil. I don't just want to be somebody who is just, working on the same team. I want to be like on a first name basis with the shaitan. And that is where sihr comes in.
Sihr meaning magic. Okay.
This is what magic is. Magic is not card tricks. Magic is not Harry Potter. Magic is not you woke up one day with a scar on your head and now you're a baby wizard. That is not, that's not magic.
Not the case,
Magic is about seeking to have a personal worship of the shaitan, devil worship, Satan worship, in order for that shaitan to serve you and fulfill you, to give you a power and control over other people through the things that shaitan has the ability to do. And nothing happens. وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Not one single person will be harmed except by Allah's permission. Like in the Shayateen, for example, fly through the air. The Shayateen are invisible. The Shayateen go inside of people. The Shayateen can change the way that you see things. So the person performing magic wants that power. I want to be able to, kill a person silently. As though they just drop down dead and nobody knows what happened to them. I want to be able to split a person from husband or wife. I want to be able to make a person go insane. I want to be able to control what a person says. I want to be able to whatever it may be from these things. The things that shaitan could potentially do. We're not giving Shaytan more than we just think that he's
able to do
he
that.
could potentially do them.
And there's a verse in Surah Baqarah that mentions that they have the power to separate between husband and wife, right?
ويتعلمون فيتعلمون منهما ما يفرقون به بين المرء وزوجه وما هم بضارين به من أحد إلا بإذن الله. They learn from them that which they separate between husband and wife, and they are not able to harm anyone without Allah's permission. Permission here meaning qadr, not meaning his religious permission, not meaning anything that's allowed in the religion.
But
very that he permits it to take place in decrees for it to take place in qadr. So now we understood that there's a person who wants this power. And there's two reasons that they want it, really. And those two reasons I mentioned in the Quran. إِنَّ لَنَا لَأَجْرًا إِن كُنَّا نَحْنُ الْغَالِبِينَ قَالَ نَعَمْ وَإِنَّكُمْ لَمِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ. Will we get paid? Are we going to get paid? They said to Fir'aun, basically, Fir'aun, you're going to sort us out, right? You're going to pay us if we win this. If we perform magic and worship the Shaytan and we defeat Musa with our devils, are you going to pay us? He said, yeah, and I'm going to make you from those close to me.
Yeah.
So it's about money, it's about status, it's about power.
Yeah.
And it's about the power that comes from money and status. There's no magician except that they're motivated by that. Allahumma illa, sometimes as well, the issue of extreme hatred and hasad is also there. Usually, it will kind of come with those other things, but this can be kind of family member things, like where the issue is what the person wants to do is to destroy a family member because there's some kind of hasad between them. But typically it's going to come back to those things, basically money and influence and status and deriving power from those things. To do that, what do they have to do? They have to, in a nutshell, they have to worship the Shaytan. And they don't have to just worship the Shaytan. We're not talking about a sajda here, or we're not talking about like a one-off act of worship. We're talking about kamal al-dhul wa kamal al-mahabba, total submission, total love of the devil. And that requires doing the most filthy, abhorrent, evil deeds again and again and again. Yeah. It's not, let's say Shaytan is not going to tell you just do this one thing. That's fine. Yeah. No. Yeah. He is going to have you literally destroy your soul, because you cannot have love of the Shaytan and love of Allah at all. So you have to totally remove love of Allah into the extent of hatred of Allah, hatred of Islam, hatred of the Muslims. You cannot, because you cannot love the Shaytan in complete love without complete hatred of Allah. So to get there, how do you even get there? How do you even remove the fitrah of a person? Yeah, that's like, you have to make a person do things that are totally and utterly unspeakable. Like, you have to make people do things that no human being, we're not talking about kafir and believer. You have to remove humanity from that person, because humanity includes a fitrah of something towards Allah. Hatta if he's kafir, he's got in his heart some sort of like, there's a God, this is some wrong. Level of respect or something. You have to, no, it can't be there. It has to, you have to remove that person's humanity. And the way you remove their humanity is by making them just do absolutely filthy, evil, abhorrent things over and over and over again. And they must include acts of open kufr, not just sin. So it's not zina. Zina is a bad thing. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Zina is a bad thing. But it's about the worst forms of zina, the unspeakable forms of zina. Now, that person did that, but the problem is it's still a sin. It's still not, they didn't show that they have utter hatred for Allah. They have to demonstrate that. So now there has to be something more. Even killing someone, there has to be something more. Even zina and killing, even combine every sin, but it's a sin, right? You need now to have something that shows hatred of Allah. So ihanat al-mushaf, disgracing the mushaf, covering the mushaf in blood, putting it in the toilet, stamping on it, been made to put the mushaf under your feet in between your shoes so that you stamp on it, covering it in najasat, in impure substances. Because the person, you have to show complete love to the shaitan. That means complete hatred to Allah. And then after that, it's actually not enough. So imagine this person has removed humanity. We don't say they removed Islam. They've removed humanity. They're no longer a normal human being.
Yeah.
They have removed every single strand of humanity, of fitrah, and the shaitan has trained them in it. And like, shaitan, I kind of see that the sihr relationship, it's kind of like the way a drug dealer works. You might start you off with a
small
freebie.
Yeah, exactly.
So they might, like, for example, come and talk to you, or they might like lift you up and make you, kind of move through the room or whatever, just to show you, just to get you hooked. Because in the beginning, you're going to disbelieve in Allah. The person might say,
yeah, of course.
I'm not sure about that. This is scary,
It's scary, yeah, exactly. But
so
step by step.
You sign your soul over step by step. But before they do anything serious, they want to see you utterly remove Islam, remove humanity, remove fitrah, until you just become a complete and total servant of evil and nothing else. Now there's something else. That's not enough. And that's where people really, if you get shocked, people say, like, what do you mean? Like, he sold his soul. وقال الشيطان لما قضي الأمر إن الله وعدكم وعد الحق ووعدتكم فأخلفتكم. I promised you and I broke my promise. I can promise everyone watching this video that Shaytan, la'anahu Allah, does not keep his promises
at all.
You will sign your soul and he will say, I'm sorry, your soul's not enough.
Yeah. That's not enough, yeah.
Your soul is not enough.
It's not enough, it's not enough.
So what is he going to ask you to do? You say, but I've given you my soul. I've committed the worst kinds of murder, of sacrifice, of evil, of zina, of the worst thing that a human being can do. I can't give you anything else. He says, sure you can. Just bring me more people who'll do the same. Bring me another person who is a Muslim, ideally, or at least a person who could be inclined towards Islam, and make that person do the same. And that's why in this business of magic, which is very far away from Harry Potter, and in this business of magic, it only works if there's a conveyor belt of people coming in. And let's be realistic now. A lot of those people in that conveyor belt are Muslim. A lot of people are going to magicians because they got a problem with their husband, they got a problem with their wife, they got a problem with their mother-in-law, they got a problem with their cousin, there's something going on in the family, ... And then that person now is going to a healer, a sheikh, an imam, a wali, a maulvi, whatever, and is going to that person, and that job of that sahir, that magician, is to do only one thing: get that person in the same road. So they're not going to say to them, now you have to, kill a child, or you have to do something like that. They're going to say, okay, no problem. I can help you with this situation with your wife. You just need to bring me a black, for example, cockerel. And you just need to assist me in the slaughter of it in the bathroom at midnight. Kufr. لعن الله من ذبح لغير الله. May Allah curse the one who sacrifices to Allah. The Prophet says in the Hadith that he said, لعن الله من ذبح لغير الله. May Allah curse the one who sacrifices to other than Allah. So now this is an act of kufr. قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. Say my prayer and my sacrifice and my life and my death are for Allah, Lord of the worlds. He doesn't have any partner. This is what I was commanded, and I'm the first of the believers. So now, to get that person to leave, the first thing they're going to leave with is dhabh. And they might not actually do the dhabh with their own hands.
Maybe they just took the animal.
But they just need to bring the animal.
Yeah.
And then he says, okay, take this meat and throw it in the garden and put it over your shoulder, rub the meat on your hands and all that kind of stuff. And that meat is najis. It's not najis in, the meat itself is meat. Like it's been sacrificed to the shaitan.
Yeah.
And from this is what Allah Azza wa Jalla said, إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ najis. The polytheists are filthy. the filth in the heart is worse than the filth on your hands.
Yeah.
That this meat has been sacrificed to the devil, and now you take it in your hands and you throw it behind your shoulder, or you bury it where they tell you to bury it, or whatever, or they tell you just wear this thing that is written on you. Now, here's a question, important, because we're trying to be realistic. I want to be realistic in this podcast. I don't want everyone to think that anyone you go to solve your problems like this is a sahir. There are people who are dunahum, less in severity, but those people just want to ruin your belief. They are shayateen from min bab al-waswasa, from the point of waswasa, from the point of making you go astray. The Prophet ﷺ said, أَخْوَفُ مَا أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ الْأَئِمَّةَ الْمُضَلِّينَ أو كما قال. The thing I'm the most scared of you is the imams that will misguide you.
Yeah.
So this person is not a sahir. They're not worshipping shaitan and all of that, but this person is writing taweez with maybe the names of shaitan on it, and you go to that person and you say, "Ya Shaykh, what is this? I just opened this amulet you gave to someone, and it says Fir'aun, Haman, Iblis, help me." See, but this is how our Shaykh taught us to write, and we found it in a book and we copied it and whatever. And that person may not be bathing himself in like blood at night or whatever, or like he may not be like doing all these kind of weird magician things, but he is someone who is halfway there. And his goal is to ruin your belief in Allah.
Subhanallah.
And that's why he might even give you a printed taweez amulet. Not even bother to write it by hand. He's not even, because the ones they write by hand, the origin of those amulets that are written by hand is something called Rayat Kisra. Khosrow's banner. It was destroyed by the Sahaba radiallahu anhum in the battle of, I think, Al-Qadisiyah, or a battle like that. One of the battles in Persia. The Sahaba destroyed it. So Khosrow, when he went out for battle, he would have a ta'weez, like a giant, like big ta'weez, on a banner. And this ta'weez he would have was 10 by 10 squares. 10 down, 10 across. And in each one was a letter. Taib, what's the letters? The shaytan, وَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ لَيُوحُونَ إِلَىٰ أَوْلِيَائِهِمْ. The shaitan tells you what to write. So they sit under the stars. قَوْمٌ يَكْتُبُونَ أَبَجَادٍ وَيَنْظُرُونَ فِي النُّجُومِ مَا لَهُم مِّن فِعْلِهِمْ هَذَا مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. Hadith is, and Ibn Abbas is ضعيف. Like what is said about it is, the meaning is correct. He said they are the people who write abajad, yani abjad, hawaz, hutti, kallim. They write codes, symbols and codes. And they look at the stars. Yani they look at, I'm writing ta underneath the star. When it's a Gemini horoscope time, I write the letter Qaf, and I write the letter Dal when this one goes into Scorpio and all of that. I do not believe when they do this, they have anything in the hereafter. Though that is, a lot of sihr like that works like that. The shaitan tells you what to write, when to write, because you're a worshipper now. Abid shaitan. You went out from وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا, the servants of the most merciful, and became servant of shaitan instead. So this person is doing what their master told them to do. He's writing dal at this time and qaf at this time and this number here and that number there. And the magicians, by the way, are terrified of Rayat Kisra. Ajib. They absolutely, like, if you they say these days, people put on forums, they talk, they're open about it.
I saw that.
They say whoever writes it will die.
Really?
Yeah, they believe that the worst of the devils come to, as if the devils are like, there's a good one and a bad one. But they like believe that the most evil of the devils comes, and they'll take you, like basically they'll take your life after you've written it. So that's why you never ever see 10 by 10. You always see like 3 by 3 and 4 by 4.
Interesting.
It's very strange.
Very strange.
Very stupid people.
It fascinates me with the environment we're in. Now, you just explained to us how evil and how the worst of the worst are doing this. Even at the very base level, it's still really filthy and disgusting. But the environment we live in now has glorified this very disgusting thing. And made 100%. It seem as if this is like the way forward, and we need to be Harry Potters, and we need to be like this and this and this and this and this. 100%. But realistically, it's the most filthiest existence you can be
100%.
in.
And it's all about the shaitan. وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. The shaitan makes it look
beautiful,
something beautiful from the outside. those guys who are in it are literally being tortured. The magician is literally being tortured day in, day out. Some of them have to sleep on nails. Some of them have to cut themselves when the shaitan tells them, stab themselves, all this kind of stuff. They're literally servants of the shaitan. Again, it's something ajib. The statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْإِنسِ يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا. There were a group of men sought refuge from a group of the jinn, and they increased them in misguidance and weakness. And one of the things here is that you actually see the magician is terrified of the jinn. طيب, those jinn are terrified of the magician.
Yeah.
How does that work? They're like, that magician's powerful. You're the one who's doing his job for him. What do you mean he's powerful? They're like, no, he's got power. He could bring something he's got. So they actually become terrified of the magician. The magician is terrified of them, and they just increase each other in misguidance and tyranny and weakness. So now we come back to this issue of the taweez, these amulets, is that what some of these guys are given is just printed pieces of paper. So you say, well, what's that got to do with anything? This is min bab al-i'tiqad. This is from the point of ruining your belief in Allah. So what I said is, not everything is sihr, right? Sometimes this guy wants to give you this thing just to ruin your iman. So it's shaitan. But one of them is getting at you through magic. The other one is giving you something that resembles magic and might lead you to take magic later on, because usually when people open it and see a printed paper, they're not all too pleased. Like, I wanted something handwritten, man. At least you could have bothered to written it with your own hands. But the end result is taking you away from Islam, making you trust this thing. If I don't take it off my neck, I'm gonna, all of that. And I think at this point, very useful to talk about at-ta'weez min al-Quran. Is it?
Yeah, because that's a lot of people said it. I mean, the other day I was out and I just had this really negative feeling, and I turned around and I saw this man had the ta'weez around his arm and it's on a band, and I just looking, and my heart, I couldn't contain myself. I said, Habibi, assalamu alaikum, all right, what's this on your arm, And I got into it and so on and so forth, and he said, oh, it helps me this and that. And I said, brother, this is not, take it off, brother. I wanted to say open it up, but we weren't in the right situation. But I said, take it off and destroy it and so on and so forth. And one of the things they say is only Quran. Yeah, it's Quran inside of here.
Yes.
So what was the position of that?
So the first thing we need to understand is that a lot of the reports of the ta'weez from the Quran are not authentic. In fact, Ibn Abi Shayba said, لم يثبت عن أحد من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Not one single Sahabi is it authentically reported from them. There are reported ihtimalat, like Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, that he used to put the Quran around the necks of his children. Like in the zahir here is that he used to do it min bab al-ta'lim, teaching them that, I don't know if you see this, how the kids used to learn before. They used to have like a little, like a board.
Yes, right, yeah.
Like around their neck, and they would like look at it and learn from it. But it's certainly not clear that he put ta'weez on it. Like, even if we accept that happened among the tabi'een, some of the tabi'een considered it to be acceptable to put that Quran. We have three things to think about. The first thing is, there are Sahaba who clearly said that it's haram, and there's no doubt about that.
Yes, yeah.
Abdullah ibn Mas'ud used to say it is, and he's afqah min afqah as-sahaba. Ba'd al-khulafa ar-rashidin, from the most fiqh among the Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And he said it is haram from the Quran or from other than the Quran. So now the issue became what? It became a matter of ikhtilaf. Why? That's actually on our side, not on their side. Why is it shows that the matter goes back to the dalil. It doesn't go back to the fact that you say Abdullah ibn Amr used to wear it.
Exactly.
You have no dalil now. Why? Because you bring Abdullah ibn Amr, I bring Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Well, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is a'lam wa afqah min Abdullah ibn Amr radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. May Allah be pleased with all of them. Like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is afqah bi kathir. And also Abdullah ibn Mas'ud has been with the Prophet ﷺ far longer. Even still, it doesn't matter. The fact that there is a view here and a view here means you cannot use Abdullah ibn Amr cancelled.
Yeah.
You can only use dalil.
Dalil. Yeah.
I also can't use Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. No problem. I'm ready. Dalil. Find me one single dalil that supports any kind of ta'weez. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ used to see when he saw it, cut it off.
Yeah.
Iqta'ha. Cut it off. The statement, if you don't cut it off, ma aflahta abadan, you'll never be successful. The statement, فَلَا يَزِيدُكَ إِلَّا وَهْنًا, it only makes you more sick. And the statement that he sent Ali bin Abi Talib, any camel you see with a string on its neck, cut it off. And any grave you see to flatten it, and so on. The point is, there's no dalil. So now we have all the dalil, and we have the view of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and we have the fact that the view of Abdullah ibn Amr is not sahih from Abdullah ibn Amr.
Yeah.
That's now looking, I've got more. I'm not stopped yet. Those who took the view from the tabi'een, and there were a'imma from the tabi'een who allowed it. What did they allow? The pure Quran, the mushaf. That is it. They did not allow symbols, letters,
writings,
numbers, tables, Iblis, Fir'aun, Haman, Israel, Jibrail, Mikael, Israfil, Ya Haman, or nothing like that. They allowed only one thing: pure and uncorrupted Quran. Not scribbles. They didn't allow scribbles. They didn't allow, like, Allahu la, that. No, they allowed the pure Quran. So I say to these people who make these ta'weez from the Muslims, I want to do something. I just want to go to Quran.com. I want to print out Ayatul Kursi, and I'm going to wrap it up and put it on my neck. What do you think? Say it doesn't work. Allah. Yani, now your lie came out.
Exactly.
Yani. Because the reality is, you don't want the ta'weez that came from the Quran. You want to write Qaf Ba'ata, you want to write what came from Kisra.
That's right, yes.
You want to write Kisra here. And what you're doing is shielding that through Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, Waruyat and Aisha, and it said that Aisha did, and it said that maybe it was the view of some of the tabi'een, and maybe print Ayatul Kursi. I believe it's haram. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud believes it's haram to print Ayatul Kursi and put it on your neck. I believe it's haram to do that. Min bab sadda dhari'a ala al-aqal. It stops the person from going into further evil. No problem. If you did that, would it work? According to your shuyukh who write the ta'weez, your imam who writes the ta'weez, your wali, your mawla, molvi, maulana, all of these people, sheikh and tabib and whatever you want to call him, spiritual guide and all of that. I just want to know, if I print a copy of Ayatul Kursi from my printer, and then I wrap it up and put it on my neck, as you said Abdullah ibn Amr did, and as you said that it was the view of this and that, will it work or not? Al-Jawab, La, it doesn't work. Why? Because you don't have a special source. Akid, I don't have a special source, because the special source is ibadat shaytan.
Yeah, exactly.
Worshipping the shaytan and all of that. So these people, wallahi, this is awhan min bayt al-ankabut. It's weaker than a spider's web. Those tabi'een who did it, and there were from the tabi'een those who did it, they did it from one angle and one angle only. And this is now, I've got 2 more points still. I'm still not done. I want to ask these people who write it, the Maulvi, Maulana, and the Sheikh, and the Tabib, and all that. What's your view about the Quran? What is the Quran? Say to me, swear to me, wa Rabbil Kaaba, that you believe the Quran is Kalamullah ghayru makhluq. It's the speech of Allah, and it's uncreated. Wallahi, you will not find one of them who believes it. All of them are upon the madahib of those people who say that the Quran is makhlukun wa ghayr makhluk and all of that. They don't believe that the words they're writing are the speech of Allah. And this is shirk bila khilaf. Because you have now attached your heart to something you do not believe is the speech of Allah. For someone who says, I don't believe that Ayatul Kursi is Kalamullah, the huruf of it, the words of it, the order of it, with all of its with everything that it contains, the meanings of it, the words of it, the letters of it, the order of it, if you don't believe that's Allah's speech, you're a mushrik.
SubhanAllah.
When you put it around your neck. And they don't believe that it's Allah's speech. Not that they write it, because they write Fir'aun and Haman and Iblis.
They write some other stuff. But
Type, I got one more. 7 to 8.
Now it's like game over. Right off.
One more. Is it not the case that ta'weez from the Quran is a dhari'ah to shirk? I think anyone,
if they didn't really understand the concept.
Even if we say Abdullah ibn Amr did it every day of his life, and Aisha radiallahu anhum, and all of them did it. I want to know, is it a dhari'ah to shirk? Is it a way that people will accidentally put Fir'aun and Iblis and Haman on their neck by accident? Is it not something that's common?
100%.
100%.
100%.
And Islam came with sadd al-dhara'i, cut off the roads. Umar radiallahu anh cut the tree, Bay'at al-Ridwan.
Yes.
The tree that Allah Azza wa Jal praised, the Muslims made the pledge under the tree, and Umar cut it down. Why? Because people started stopping at the tree and seeking barakah from the tree. Subhanallah. For me, they have no response to it. Even if they say, Muhammad Tim, you're wrong, Ibn Abi Shayba was wrong, there is authentic narrations, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, the Tabi'een. Wallah, one way or the other, this is awhan min bayt al-ankabut. It's weaker than a spider's web. So get rid of those ta'weez. And when people open it up, I can probably say I've opened up, I certainly hundreds, probably thousands, I don't know, a lot of ta'weez. And I can barely remember any time that I saw the Quran.
That's exactly what I was going to actually talk about, is that what's really sad is that the people who actually wear them sometimes are just so oblivious that when you take them in and you open it up and you show them, they're like shocked that it doesn't contain the Quran. It contains all these things you mentioned, the names of Shaytan and all this stuff written backwards, grids and all sorts of stuff. And this is a really sad state of affairs.
Yes, subhanAllah. No doubt.
Really sad.
No doubt. There's a point actually I wanted to add to just to clarify something. We talked about if you don't believe the Quran is kalam of Allah, then it's shirk. It's either shirkun asghar or shirkun akbar. Shirkun asghar, lesser shirk, is to take a cause for something which Allah has not made a cause. So the person says, I believe that a black cloth protects me by Allah. Allah protects me through the black cloth. This is shirkun asghar. Like it's lesser shirk, right? It's the worst of the major sins, but it doesn't take the person outside of Islam. They tied a black cloth and he says, I believe that this Allah keeps me safe through this cloth. The cloth has no power, but Allah has made it, and Allah hasn't made it a reason. This is shirkun asghar. But if they believe that that cloth benefits them in any way besides Allah, this takes you outside of the religion of Islam.
SubhanAllah.
So that's an important point to note.
Yeah, very, very
So we've got this whole idea now of the way that magic is working, the kind of things they're doing, the whole issue of ta'weez, which is not always magic, but is calling the people either to bid'ah, either to shirk, like steps basically. Innovation, followed by shirk, followed by sihr, followed by magic, followed by, you know, and it just keeps going like that. And that's why don't limit the shaitan to only magic. Shaitan will get you any which way he can. But it is very common. Magic is very common. Jinn possession is also common. And I distinguish between them, even though the magician is using the jinn, and the jinn may possess on the command of the magician, stroke agreement with the magician. There's another aspect, which is sometimes the jinn might possess someone of their own accord.
Yeah, I was going to actually touch on this, and Jazakallah khair for bringing it up, is that we have this issue now where I've seen recently someone is getting some interference from the unseen world, and they can't come to a conclusion that someone's done magic on them. Why would anyone do magic on me? You know, it just doesn't compute to them.
Sorry.
So they think it's their own mind. But then, as you mentioned, sometimes the jinn will just possess you through their own accord.
Yeah. And not even possess. So let's talk about two types of interaction with the jinn outside of magic.
Okay.
And outside of waswaas. Waswaas is normal. We all get it.
We all get it.
We all get waswaas and everything. So let's take two interactions. One is the jinn being around you. And the evidence for that is Surah Al-Mu'minun. وَقُلْ رَبِّي أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ هَمَزَاتِ الشَّيَاطِينِ وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ رَبِّي أَنْ يَحْضُرُونَ. Say, I seek my refuge, O Allah, from the whisperings of the shaitan or the the influence of the shaitan, and I seek refuge, my Lord, of them being around me. So this is where we talk about haunted houses.
Yes.
For want of a better word. The things external to the body. So you got like things falling down, things switching off, all that type of stuff, windows opening, closing. Very important for a person in that situation not to be scared. I know it's difficult because your natural reaction, but if you just think like if it was one of your kids, like slapping the door open and close, you wouldn't be scared of it, right? You'd just be like,
a bit annoyed, a bit frustrated,
but you wouldn't be scared of it. And the same thing, you think that it's just a creature. It's not a horror movie, and it's just a creature that is opening and closing the door. I mean, it's annoying, but it's not. It doesn't need to be scary. And then, obviously, for each one of these, there's a treatment. I think we need to make the treatment a separate discussion, inshallah, because we will get into the whole topic of the treatment for each particular situation, whether magic, jinn being around you, jinn possession, and evil eye, and all of that. But we'll get through the issues first, inshallah ta'ala. So the other situation is the jinn possessing someone, and this is proven by the Quran and by the Sunnah and by ijma'. And really, it pains me to see. It pains me beyond belief to see people denying, people who believe in the Quran and the Sunnah, denying that the jinn possess people. And again, I've answered it I've got videos where I've answered it in like huge amount of detail. Let's just take an ayah, let's just take a hadith, and then we also talk about the agreement of, even the Muslims, even the non-Muslims in Jahiliyyah believed the same thing. So first of all, the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَا لَا يَقُومُونَ إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُومُ الَّذِي يَتَخَبَّطُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ. Those who devour riba will not stand on the day of judgment except like the one who the shaitan has driven them into insanity by possession. Okay, no problem. Let's say the word mess here doesn't mean possession. It doesn't really help the other side, because whether the issue is not the issue of dukhul, of the shaitan going in. The issue is that you're saying the shaitan does not have sultan over me, and the shaitan cannot have control over me. طيب, then really this issue of inside or outside actually is not, it doesn't help you in your argument, because your whole argument is based on the fact that the shaitan cannot have control of me. Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim sultan. طيب, إلا من اتبعك من الغاوين. يعني Allah, that's not. So we'll go through some of the points. So the first is, Allah affirmed that there are people who become insane because of the touch, the mess of the shaitan. Now we call jinn possession mess, but here it doesn't matter, external, internal, doesn't matter at all. If we can prove that the shaitan can drive a person to insanity through a physical means, that is that's game over now.
Yes.
The other person's argument fell, because their whole argument is built on the fact that cannot happen.
Cannot happen, yeah.
So it doesn't matter internal, external. We don't need to even argue that. We only need to show that
it has effect, and it can
have
happen.
A physical effect upon you, that the jinn can drive you into insanity through their touch. Finished. The tafsir of the ayah is absolutely clear. In the Ahl Sunnah, there's no khilaf about it, that this refers to jinn possession. طيب. Go to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Inna shaytan yajri fi ibni Adam majra dam. Shaitan flows through the body in the way that the blood, in the places that the blood flows. A nas, as a text. Okay, does he cause insanity from that, or he doesn't? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's the fact that
we've now proven from two sides. We've proven that the shaitan can cause insanity through his touch, and we've proven that the shaitan can flow through the blood, through the veins and the arteries. Add to that the issue of when you're yawning, the Prophet ﷺ told you to cover your mouth. فَإِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَدْخُلُ, for the shaitan goes inside.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's metaphorical. I want to, okay, let's talk about it. It's metaphorical. Okay. You have to have a reason for something to be metaphorical. Like sometimes people get caught up in al-majaz, al-majaz fil lugha, or is there, leave that. I want to know what there's a reason you went for metaphor. Let's say for example, without talking about metaphors in Arabic, Muhammad is a lion. There's a reason why you don't believe he's got 4 legs.
That's right.
There's something intellectually that said he's not a lion.
Yeah.
I personally don't believe that's majaz. As my view is, I don't believe that is a metaphor in Arabic. I personally don't believe it is. But that doesn't matter. The point here is, even if it is, there's a reason why in your mind you said, yeah, he's not actually the animal. He's brave. I want to know the reason why what the Prophet ﷺ said, the jinn goes in. Why can it not be true? Bil-aql.
Yeah.
Why does your intellect reject it being true? Because you only said majaz. It's a metaphor. You only said that when your intellect said this is impossible. Muhammad is a human being. He's not a lion. It's not possible. You said it's not possible. I want to know why.
Why? Yeah.
What is the logical, aqli, intellectual, rational reason why it cannot happen? It's the unseen. First of all, I mean, who told you how it works? And it's the unseen. Why? And honestly, you will just get, because I don't want Shaytan to go inside of me.
Or they want to disbelieve it and try. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just desires and whatever. Like, you don't have an intellectual, rational reason why this is a metaphor. In fact, even if it's a metaphor, let's go back to the ayah, causing insanity. Insanity is not metaphorical. Insanity is يَتَخَبَّطُهُ الشَّيْطَانِ. Insanity is something real. There's just no reason for it except desires. Then we say, on top of that whole issue of why do you believe that, we look at the text of the Quran and the Sunnah. And the text of the Quran and the Sunnah affirm numerous places that the shaitan enters into the body in numerous wordings. And that's why metaphors don't work like that, neither in English nor in Arabic. You know, if you say Muhammad's a lion, Muhammad has a mane, yani Muhammad has claws, Muhammad has Qarin teeth, yani Muhammad has fur. Like, the more you talk about something in a different way, the more the metaphor just disappears. فإن الشيطان يدخل إن الشيطان يجري في ابن آدم مجرى الدم. Keep going and going and going. أخرج يا عدو الله. Exit from this person or enemy of Allah, and I'm the messenger of Allah. And the Prophet struck him on the chest, or struck the child
on the chest,
the chest, and said, leave, O enemy of Allah. Then, okay, we could be thinking crazy. It could be. So let's look at how the Sahaba understood. First of all, it was a well-known opinion in Jahiliyyah. Hatta even among the poetry of Jahiliyyah, you say them talking about al-ghul and the ghouls that misguide the people on the path. And they believed in Jinn possession. They believed in it. And they believed that there were types of insanity caused by Jinn possession. That was what they believed. And again, some people say, Islam is just softening, keeping them kind of like talking to, what's the word? Hadiths an-nas bima ya'rifuna. Speak to people with what they know. But that's not realistic. If there's a wrong aqeedah here, Allah has to tell them that this is wrong.
Yes, exactly.
They're not told it's wrong. And they believed it. Among Ahl Sunnah, there is no khilaf, not for hundreds upon hundreds of years. Not the Sahaba, not the Tabi'een, not Tabi' al-Atba'. Keep going until someone 2 weeks ago, there is no one who actually said this among the people of the Sunnah. Look at the tafsir. People didn't say it. Then someone says, okay, we've got a dalil though. We've got a dalil. Say, okay, give it. Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim sultan. My servants, you don't have sultan over them. Sultan means authority. Okay, that's what everyone knows. Sultan, right? Yes. Sultan, the king, the sultan. Yeah,
he is the one
you
in
don't
charge.
Have sultan over. The shaitan doesn't have sultan over you. First of all, we say, look at the scholars of tafsir and what they said about this ayah. None of them said this refers to physical jinn possession, but they talk about the fact that the shaitan isn't given the ability to guide or misguide you.
Yes,
the shaitan disturbs you and whispers to you and whatever. Like, the shaitan is not given the ability. Now what they said there, okay, this means there cannot be jinn possession because in jinn possession, the shaitan has ability over the person. I give two responses to that. The first is not true that they have sultan over the person. There's no guarantee. Rather, people with jinn possession go in and out and, they struggle and they fight the shaitan.
Yep.
And that is exactly the same as wrestling a human being. Is it not possible that someone could come in here, big tough guy, and pick me up and carry me out? But can I not say, Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim sultan?
No,
nobody says this.
Exactly, yeah.
He's going to say, he's just picked you up and threw you out. He's not a sultan over you. He's just wrestling with you and controlling you and throwing you about and everything.
No.
Could someone not pin me to the ground? Some, jiu-jitsu type thing going on there?
Yeah, it's possible.
Pin me to the ground? Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim sultan. It just doesn't match with, it doesn't match at all. It's not consistent at all. The issue of the shayateen is also, there's an istithna in one of the ayat. Illa, except man ittaba'aka min al-ghawin, those who follow you from those who are astray and sinful. So Allah affirmed sultan for the shaitan over certain people. So now they came to the point, so now if we're following this, by their own view, they now have to say the shaitan can enter the kafir and the fasiq, but can't enter the Muslim al-muwahhid. Nobody said, they don't say that. They say can't enter anyone. But by the text of the Quran, according to your own view, not my view. My view is easy. It can enter anyone, but there will be a hikmah and a reason, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can test a person. What did Ayub say? Massani ash-shaytan bi nusbin wa adab. The shaitan has touched me with hardship and torture. The shaitan is torturing me. Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim sultan. He had sultan over Ayub. No, it's not like that. I don't think that's correct at all. But from their own view, if they follow that view, illa man ittaba'aka min al-ghawin, now you have to say that at least the kafir, if not the fasiq, the shaitan can enter them.
True.
Because now your dalil just evaporated.
Exactly.
So now what do you have? You don't say that. You say can't enter anybody. For this is just hawa. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. Have you seen the one who took his God as his desires? His desires as his God. He took his desires as his God. Just following desires. It's not consistent. It doesn't make sense. And it's based on a false premise that it's rationally wrong to believe that the shaitan can afflict a person. Doesn't make any sense. So now we came to shaitan afflicting a person inside. Inna shaitan yajri fi ibni Adam majra dam. Shaitan flows through a person the way that the blood
flows through the
person. And this is the entry of the shaitan into the body. As for the Qarin, we don't really know how the Qarin is connected to us.
The Qarin meaning?
The Qarin being your companion from the Shayateen, and the one that follows you around and tells you to do evil. Is he following you from behind? Is he... Allahu alam. I don't know the answer to that, to where the Qarin is and what the Qarin does. Does he sit on your shoulder? Does he follow you from behind? Does he go inside? Does he not? Allahu alam. I don't know an evidence for that. So I'm saying that there's certain things we don't know. Like we're talking about a shaitan now entering.
Okay.
Now,
can I just bring you back there to one point, if you don't mind? So we have what's known like people go to soothsayers and storytellers and so on and so forth. What's the interaction between their jinn or that they're using and the Qarin that we have? Because you find sometimes the soothsayer will start talking about personal matters of the person's life and no one else would know. So
we know from the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the way that fortune telling and soothsaying works is that the jinn and the shayateen, it's a branch of magic, which is a branch of worshipping the shaitan in order to get knowledge about what's going to happen.
Okay.
So the shayateen ascend to the heavens, they climb on top of each other like a big tall tower, and they try to listen to something being given to the angels. Just a snippet, a scrap of a piece of information that's been given to the angels about what will happen. And then they try to transmit it down the chain like Chinese whispers. Okay. But the problem is they get hit by shihabun thaqib, yani by fireballs and thunderbolts. So this thunderbolt hits them. And sometimes they manage to pass the knowledge on before, and sometimes they don't, until it goes all the way down to the fortune teller, and they mix with it 100 lies.
Okay.
So now the fortune teller tells you a whole bunch of rubbish. But along with that rubbish are one or two things that are either gained from you by means of like kind of trickery, or the shaitan whispered from the heavens. But that's not the only way. One way is also for them to interact with your Qarin. Now, your Qarin doesn't have ultimate free will either. So your Qarin cannot, like unrestricted free will, it cannot just tell anything it wants, but it can try. So, for example, what's this guy's name? His name is Muhammad Tim. I perceive that your name is Muhammad Tim.
That sort of nonsense.
Like that kind of thing. How many kids has he got? I perceive that you have this many children. So that's one thing. So it's a combination of three things. Trickery. So, the classic one of the secretary takes your details outside and quickly sends the information across. They come and say, I perceive that you came to see me because of the problem you told my secretary about 5 minutes ago. That's one.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the
stealing information.
Stealing from the jinn.
Yeah.
And then taking information from your Qarin.
Okay.
And then mixing with it lies, because Shaytan sadaqaka wa huwa kadhub. He told you the truth even though he's a very big liar. That is Shaytan. So the Shaytan doesn't give you the truth. So that's why. And you believe them because of that truth that they heard. You believe them because of that truth. You ignore the fact that, they said, today 10 bad things are going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And from the bad things that are going to happen to you is X, Y, Z. And because of one thing you believe, and you ignore the fact that the other 9 things never happened the way they said it would. But it just, your mind kind of like, the shaitan whispers to you and everything. So that's that issue. Back to Jinn Possession. The issue with Jinn Possession now that we need to kind of understand is that Jinn Possession can be ordered by the magician and almost take place through a magical contract that locks the jinn into the body and all that kind of stuff, like a cage. That is one side, and that's what we call magic. And it can take place by the jinn themselves, because the jinn have that same limited free will that we have, and they might choose to possess a person. Why would that be? Really, why would someone get in a fight? Why would a human being get in a fight with you? Yeah, you upset them, you offended them,
insults, or road rage, things like this.
Things like this. So the jinn have a slightly different angle, but a very similar kind of thing. Like, you could have come across them, you could have accidentally poured boiling water on them, or like, how people used to throw stuff out of the kitchen window and whatever, and or you could have, like, someone goes to relieve themselves in the woods or in a cave or whatever, and they don't follow the proper Islamic etiquettes. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith, and all of that. So the person, if the person did their business on a jinn, a human being would like kill you for that.
Exactly.
So let alone, and so the jinn, it can be because of this, they see you vulnerable to it, like because of your lack of proper belief, not being connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and things like that. So maybe they see that you're already under the influence of maybe evil eye or magic.
It can happen through love as well.
Yeah, it could, like, same motivation of human beings, right? So love, and things like that. So now, what I'm kind of thinking is that, because of the length of the podcast, what might be nice is the details of all the treatment and everything, as we take it as a completely different podcast, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
Like as a part 2.
Yes, inshallah.
But I still think we need to leave people with something.
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise we're gonna
like, where's the hope? We're
gonna leave them in a difficult situation. So we got one more thing to talk about, which is the evil eye, and then we can talk about a brief solution to these things, and then we can maybe make a part 2 and go into details.
Inshallah.
So in terms of the evil eye does not necessarily work through the jinn, although it can work through the jinn, and that is that, see it like your soul has a gun. And when it gets extremely jealous and extremely amazed by someone, it fires a bullet. And that person may be protected, and you might miss, like anyone firing a gun. You might not hit
the target.
But if you hit the target, they may be protected or they may be not protected.
Okay.
That's the example Ibn al-Qayyim gives with an arrow. But today we kind of understand that gun sort of example better. Then that's how it is. Imagine it like a bullet or an arrow that comes out from the soul of the person who's jealous or the person who is extremely amazed by something, and it's shot at a target and it might hit, might miss, the person might be protected, might not be. It can be carried by the jinn. It may even, according to some of the scholars, come from the jinn at times. Like the jinn could have their own souls that can fire these bullets.
Okay.
Could be that the bullet weakens you and the jinn, and the jinn enters you from the side of possession or whatever. Could also be, and many other combinations as well. The key thing is that it doesn't come from everyone who's jealous.
Okay.
So not everyone who's jealous has the ability, like say not everyone's carrying a firearm here, right? Some people, when they get jealous of people, they just don't have the gun, man. They don't shoot at people. Maybe it's just a fizzle, you know, like they ruin their own life. They're miserable. They ruin their good deeds, but they don't actually cause a physical harm to the person over there.
Okay.
That happens with a certain people who carry, let's say, you can't say it's a gene, but like who have that attribute within them. And some people are worse than others, and some people are so bad that they even do it on demand, and that is close to sihr. That's almost the same as magic, which is evil eye on demand, which is that the person says, I will choose to target this person with this evil thoughts.
I've heard of this before. I've heard of this, like some people, they would go in a certain country and look at the farmer's sheep, and they would look at the sheep, and the sheep would fall over so that they can take it for themselves, because it no longer becomes able to be slaughtered correctly. So this is the thing. They say is the same as, it's basically another branch of magic. Okay. And it's very likely that it happens also through worshipping Shaytan in a way. Okay. Like maybe the person isn't directly, but the Shaytan is around that. There's nobody who is deliberately trying to kill people through jealousy, except that person is involved with the Shayateen. Yeah. So that's close to being a branch of magic. Of course, it can come from magic, come from somewhere else. So looking into that whole thing, we've got Jinn possession through external, through causes that are from the jinn themselves. We've got the jinn being around you in the home. We've got the evil eye, and we've got magic. Which is an act of worship of the Shaytan, in which a magical contract is formed, and by that contract the jinn serve the magician in certain limited regards, and they're often locked inside of that person's body, or given an additional power which is greater than that which they would normally have. Now, one thing you need to understand about magic is it's not limited to just the average power of the jinn, like I'll go and disturb them. The jinn that go have something more than what they would normally have, and sometimes that can be that that some of the jinn are kind of locked inside of the person and can't find an easy way out. And those are the issues we're dealing with. And what I want to sort of talk about is I really want to do a part 2 where we do a lot of detail about the treatments. But I just want to talk about, first of all, the general things by which a person is protected by Allah. And someone might say, well, we're not talking about Ruqyah, we're not talking about... But actually, the greatest thing you can do is to have really good body armor. This will help you, by Allah's permission, even more than the whole issue of treatment and Ruqyah, is to have some really, really good body armor. So what's your body armor? Number one, it is your imaan, particularly your imaan in the oneness of Allah and His right to be worshipped alone. And the evidence for that is الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِظُلْمٍ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. Those who believe and don't mix up their belief with falsehood, with shirk, with making a partner with Allah, they are the ones who will be safe, and they're the ones who will be guided. So safety in the dunya and the akhirah comes from tawheed. The tawheed of Allah, worshipping Allah alone, not making any partner with Him in any way, major or minor, in any aspect of Allah's rights. That is the greatest body armor that you can have to protect you against any of these things. The second is going to be following the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in as much as you can do.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلْيَحْذَرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَن تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ أَوْ يُصِيبَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. Let them take a warning. Those who oppose the Prophet's command, his sunnah, that they be afflicted by a trial, a tribulation, or a severe punishment. What does that show us? It shows us that the reverse understanding is you follow the sunnah, no trials, no punishments.
Yeah.
Or not trials in your deen anyway. So it's a protection. It's a protection from these things. The third is a taqwa. The word taqwa actually means something close to kind of like body armor. You know, like the actual word taqwa is to put a protective barrier between you and something you're scared of.
Yes.
And you do that by obeying Allah in everything you can and keeping away from everything that you can keep away from, that Allah told you to keep away from. And that, if you do those two things, do as much as you can to obey Allah and keep away from as much as you can, you get a protective barrier from that which you're scared of. And that includes the jinn and the shayateen. And there are many, many evidences for that. The statement of Allah, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. But the word itself means to be protected. Similar to that, in a similar line to that, is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, in which the Prophet ﷺ said to him, احفظ الله يحفظك. After the adhan, inshallah, because I think we could wrap up with this in a brief little introduction to Ruqyah.
No, inshallah.
Just like to, and then we can get into the details next time. I think that's
fantastic.
And it was good.
Very good, mashallah. I'm taking a lot of benefit myself.
The hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, احفظ الله يحفظك. If you guard what Allah told you to guard, then Allah will guard you. Talk about two things Allah told you to guard. Just if I was to say to someone, from your knowledge of the Quran, give me two things that Allah used the word guard with regard to them.
Salah, definitely one.
Salah. حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى وقوموا لله قانتين. Guard your prayers like the middle prayer. You know another one?
The rights.
Rights, definitely. That comes in. I'm thinking of وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ.
Guarding your private parts.
Guarding your private parts, your chastity.
Yes.
So if you can guard those two things,
and they're found in those references to guarding to those two things are found in the same surah.
Yeah. So guarding, right? You've got guarding the salah.
Yeah.
Guarding chastity. These two things will protect you from all kinds of afflictions.
SubhanAllah.
And that's why there are certain things that open afflictions to the shaitan. And one of them is issues with relating to chastity and issues relating to lowering the gaze and issues relating to sins people do in private. And this opens the door to the shaitan, as does, on a side issue, drug abuse.
SubhanAllah.
No word of a lie. Like for me, there's an undoubtable link between drug abuse and jinn possession.
Wow.
Particularly meth and cannabis, particularly.
Yeah.
Out of all of the drugs, those are the two that I know to be worse. And I'm not talking about confusing hallucination with jinn possession. No, I'm talking about proven jinn possession. I'm talking about like the person is spinning around and flying through the air and all that. And it started for them with addiction to drugs.
Maybe in part 2 we can talk about my story, because that has a real connection to what I was going through.
Yes.
I was drinking, alcohol and whatever, being intoxicated, and I was going through this, I'd wake up in one place and be in another place. I'd move through and I was like, this is happening to me, and everyone's like, you're drunk and this one's it. Until I one day said, no, please, can someone stay with me, watch me? And the person who stayed with me at the time, who now, mashallah, is also a Muslim, said that you were lifted off and completely,
and that in a roundabout way led you to Islam.
Yes, it did indeed. It did indeed.
Look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna Allah la yansur hadha ad-din rajul fajir. Allah subhanaunu wa ta'ala will take this shaitan who is the worst and make that shaitan a reason for somebody to be guided to Islam. SubhanAllah. So guarding what Allah told you to guard. Okay, so those are specifically, and the rights of the people, no doubt. All of these things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you to guard and be careful of, the rights of Allah before anything else.
Yes, sir.
That you guard them and Allah will take care of you, Allah will protect you. And then the adhkar. The adhkar are Hisnul Muslim.
SubhanAllah.
I'm talking about the book. The book's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the
actual
fortress
yeah.
that you are guarded inside of. If you want your own personal fortress that accompanies you wherever you are, your own, Secret Service bodyguards, left and right, all you need to do is dhikrullah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
SubhanAllah.
The remembrance of Allah. And the remembrance of Allah, there are 3 types of remembrance of Allah. There are remembrance of Allah at fixed times, remembrance of Allah at fixed places, and general remembrance of Allah, including reciting the Quran. All of those are a means to be protected. So specific times, I would recommend morning and evening adhkar. You can find them in Fortress of the Muslim. You can also find them online as well. Very easy and to find. Fortress of the Muslim is a nice, reliable book. I also recommend before going to sleep and after the 5 daily prayers.
Yes, yeah.
Those are really important adhkar that have specific times. So morning and evening is after Fajr, and I personally looked into it. I prefer the view that it is عند المغرب or قبيل المغرب, like around the time of Maghrib, around the time of انتشار الشيطان. إن للشيطان انتشارا وخطفا. The shaitan spreads and snatches people around Maghrib time. Around Maghrib time. Then I would say from the places going out of the house, coming into the house, before you go to the bathroom, and also at a time of intimacy between husband and wife. These are all times when the shaitan is, could come near to you or afflict you. So you got yourself covered. And if you go out of the house, Bismillah tawakkaltu ala Allah, wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah, the shaitan turns away and runs away and says, what will I do with a person who has been protected and has been guided and has been sufficed against every evil? And then general dhikr. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا. Remember Allah a lot. Read the Quran. Be someone who Allah's name is. We're not going to say, I'm not going to say, I'm not saying that we're people who never say anything else. It can be someone who the name of Allah is not unusual for you to say. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, reciting the Quran and so on. All of that is to do with protection. Now, specifically treatment. There are many different types of treatment which needs a proper podcast, but I don't want to leave people with no idea of how to do treatment at all. Very, very simple, basic treatment of Ruqyah Shar'iyah. And Ruqyah, I prefer to use the word al-istishfa bil-Quran.
Okay.
Seeking a cure from the Quran. Quranic therapy. But I just love to use the word seeking a cure because that's what it is. Ruqyah sounds like could it be an incantation and it's not a bad thing, but I like the word seeking a cure from the Quran. And that is to recite the Quran, which can include blowing or spitting or reciting on water or reciting on olive oil and then applying it to the body. It can include any of those things, but reciting the Quran with the intention of shifa, and add to that reciting the du'as, the ad'iyah, the du'a of shifa that came in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If you want to know those du'as, there's the same author of Fortress of the Muslim has a companion book which is called Ruqyah Supplications.
That's right, yeah.
And that one by the same Dr. Sa'id al-Qahtani, the same author as Fortress of the Muslim. It's a companion book, has all of them in it as well. And what can you read? You can read anything from the Quran. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَا يَزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. Whatever you want from the Quran, you can read is a shifa, but
you have to have the
intention for shifa. You don't need to have a specific intention about is it psychological, medical, spiritual, jinn, magic. For now, we'll go into that later in part 2. For now, just Allah, I'm asking you to cure me through reciting the Quran and the dua that the Prophet ﷺ used to make. And from the surahs you must stick to, Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha, either once, either 3 times, 7 times, or any odd number without specifying a specific number. Surah Al-Baqarah, especially when the shaitan is around you in the house, haunted houses. فَإِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَفِرُّ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ الَّذِي تُقْرَأُ فِي سُورَةِ الْبَقَرَةِ. Shaitan runs away from the house where Surah Al-Baqarah is read. In Surah Al-Baqarah, particularly focusing on Ayat Al-Kursi and the last 2 ayahs of Surah Al-Baqarah, آمَنَ الرَّسُولُ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ رَبِّهِ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ, until أَنْتَ مَوْلَانَا فَانْصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. This is, I would read all of it, but if I was short for time, I might focus a lot on Ayat Al-Kursi and a lot on the last 2 ayat. That's another thing. Then after that, the mu'awwidhat. So, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Again, 1 time, 3 times, 7 times, or any odd number of times that you, without picking a specific number. These all have evidences from the Sunnah. And then you may read whatever else of the Quran that you wish, including ayat related to magic, ayat related to the jinn, ayat related to the evil eye. You may read any of them, but I would suggest you do it after you have stuck to the what is proven from the Sunnah. And then after that, you want to read about, ayat of magic. There's ayat regarding magic, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 102. There are the ayat in Surah Al-A'raf, in Surah Taha. There are also in Surah Al-Shu'ara, and in Surah, also for the Jinn, Surah Al-Jinn, and Surah Al-Ahqaf also have the story of the Jinn that heard the Quran at the end of Surah Al-Ahqaf as well. And Surah Al-Jinn, the evil eye is mentioned at the end of Surah Al-Qalam, Noon wal-Qalami wa ma yasturun. And likewise, the evil eye is mentioned in Surah Al-Falaq as well. And likewise, whatever else that you want to read. You want to read Surah Yasin, you want to read Surah Al-Safat, Bismillah. But don't let those be a replacement for what the Sahaba used to read day in, day out. Doesn't matter whether it's psychological, spiritual, medical, fever, headache, don't feel well, COVID, flu, all of it. Just make the dua for shifa and then blow, wipe it on yourself. If you feel pain in a part of the body, focus on it, blow on it, spit on it with spittle. And that is read on water, read on oil, then apply the oil at night, drink the water in the day, pour the water over your head. All of this is from the ways of cure. For the evil eye, there's one more we're going to mention super quick, and that is if you know who did the evil eye, or you suspect, even suspicion is enough, you can ask them to collate their ghusl or wudu water. Make, for example, what they can do is just collate it in a bucket, just sort of wash, or standing in a big bucket, or they can make wudu over a sink, like with a bucket in it, and then take that water and pour it over the back of the head of the person who is afflicted. That's a super quick, extremely quick discussion, because it needs a part 2.
It needs
we go over it
discussion.
again. We go over it again part 2. But that was just because I don't want to leave people and say I left them with the horror, but I didn't give them the that which will bring you comfort and bring you hope by Allah's permission.
Inshallah. I think that, as you said, is a beautiful discussion that we'll have another time. But to the viewers now, they've got enough to take away from, which is that the belief in this element and the existence of this creation and how it's connected to our belief as Muslims, and for the non-Muslims who may be listening, to understand how what maybe they're going through that they may not understand is answered by Islam. So it might encourage them to look more deeper into Islam and the belief system, and maybe they'll find that they enter into it maybe another day, inshallah.
Bi-idhnillah ta'ala, it's so much more rational and logical and sensible than believing in the ghost of your dead granddad, isn't it? Yeah. Like it's at the end of the day, it's completely, it's a creature just like any other creature, and they have certain abilities, like parasites can enter the body and exert control over the body. It's not unknown what we're saying. We're not saying something that's like far-fetched.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something that's very, very easy for a person to believe. And I actually know numerous people who accepted Islam because of this, including a brother who's a paranormal investigator. I talk about him next time.
Next time,
Allah bless him. He's a paranormal investigator. And he said, I just couldn't reconcile this with being the ghosts and the spirits of the dead. And I felt like there's something we're missing. And he said, as soon as I heard Islam's explanation, I just knew straight away it was the truth. And that's a story for another day.
I think I'll end with just saying, like, you know, for me, in my story, in my interaction with the jinn before becoming a Muslim, what really solidified this belief in me is that the protection came from Allah. And when I was going through this, and when I called out to Allah, even though I didn't know really much about Islam and about Allah, that was when the salvation comes, and that solidifies the belief. So I think we'll leave it there and leave on a cliffhanger for the next episode, inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah ta'ala.
So for the viewers at home, there you go. You've heard about what goes bump in the night and what all these wizards and witchcraft is going on amongst us, what it really entails and how really evil it is. And I think we owe it to ourselves, just like we busy ourselves with horror movies, we owe it upon ourselves to also busy ourselves with understanding the truth. So stay tuned for part 2, inshallah ta'ala. See you next time.